Welcome to the Sport MVT Insider, a platform where we are unrelenting in covering women in sport and of course celebrating some of those achievements, whether they might be big or sometimes we even celebrate the small achievements as well. Now today we are focusing on the sport of canoeing. Now many South Africans aren't too familiar with the sport, and that is why today we've decided to shine a spotlight on this incredibly physical and challenging sport that has produced some phenomenal athletes in South Africa as well. Today, I am joined by a South African sprint canoer, and she's also the deputy chairperson for the Athletes Commission at 𝗙cie𝗹𝗹𝗶. Her name is Bridgitte Hartley. Bridgitte, how are you doing today?
Very well, thanks. Thanks for the awesome introduction, Aro.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Sport MVT Insider. I would like for us to start the conversation here. How did you fall in love with the sport of canoeing, as well as how did that passion actually start to grow as well?
So interesting enough, actually, it wasn't a 100% head over heels falling in love with the sport. I've always done sport from a very young age, from netball when I was in junior school to eventually changing over to hockey, because then it wasn't so cool to play netball anymore and my friends all played hockey, and I played a little bit of cricket. I did gymnastics for quite a bit in my career. I did athletics, a little bit of water polo. Wasn't always the best swimmer. Then I started surfing when my parents separated when I was 13, because my mom moved to Richards Bay and my dad was in Pretoria. And then I was adamant that I was going to become a pro surfer. But in between all of that, I would still play hockey and do athletics and do all the other school sports. And my dad introduced me to paddling kind of late in high school. But I was then, at the time, I'd gone back to Pretoria to be a board at Pretoria High School for Girls. So then I was actually very much into school sports. Then I didn't want to study when somebody told me to study, so I did almost every school sport I could. And then to do a bit of paddling on the side, I'd go with my dad and my brother to 𝗙𝗶𝗶𝗶, and I really didn't enjoy it because they would leave me behind. I'd get on the water and they'd just paddle away. And obviously, I'm a young girl with very little upper body strength, and I seriously didn't enjoy it. So I just did it because my dad loved it and it was something I could do with him. But I could never get an award for it at school, so it wasn't something that I kind of pursued. And then when I went to 𝗙cie, I played hockey for the first 2 years, and that's when I slowly but surely started paddling more. And then I met some guys at varsity who I then started training with a little bit more every now and then they introduced me to a Hungarian coach who was in Benoni at the time, and that's sort of how I kind of got hooked on paddling more.
Absolutely beautiful. I would love to focus on that coach that you met in Benoni as well. Now, I know that you've been part of the Benoni club for at least the last 12 years. How important has this club been to your success in the sport of canoeing?
So I wouldn't say I've been a part of that for the whole time. It was definitely the 𝗙cie Canoe Club that was my first club that I joined. And then it basically, my second home became Benoni with regards to a paddling club, because we spent so many hours on the dam and time trials, and the club supported us so much. And the little gym we trained in was right next to the water there, very tiny, with like 5 or 6 of us doing 3 gym sessions a week together, probably half on top of each other, sweating. So it definitely has a memory in my head. But I didn't stay a member of that club because then I moved places. But I definitely, it's cemented as one of the, I would say, base clubs after 𝗙cie that really kind of created or turned me into more of a top paddler to be competitive in South Africa.
Absolutely beautiful. Let me take you back to 2008, and of course that is the Olympic Games. Tell us a little bit about your debut at the Olympic Games in 2008.
So that was a produce thanks to the Benoni club, because we were quite a big squad training there with Nando Almasi, and Sean Rubenstein was the main male paddler for South Africa. And then there was a women's K4 as well, and half of us trained together up in Benoni together. So it was really good, challenging each other on the water. And then we'd join up with the other 2 girls from Cape Town. So there were 5 of us training together. and team boats are always challenging. And then I ended up not being in the K4, but in the women's K2 that competed at the Beijing Olympics. So for me, I was just super grateful to be able to compete at that level. It's never been something that I've kind of grown up imagining I'm going to go to Olympic Games. I've always just been 150% competitive, that whatever I do, I want to kind of try and be the best at when it's with regards to sport. So I think that's probably what added to it. And I think going to the Olympics was actually quite a mesmerizing occasion. I don't think I really knew what hit me. Reveled in the occasion. I was stressed, I was nervous. I enjoyed the village, the opening ceremony, a crazy country that I'd never been to ever, that felt like a fairy tale world because all the buildings ended in these dragons. China is a very different place. And yeah, I ended up racing, made it through the heat to the semi-finals with my K2 partner, 𝗀cie𝗰𝗶𝗹. Then we got knocked out, and then I ended up watching the other South Africans, and I did a proper Olympic debut celebration afterwards. I managed to find every nightclub possible to go to for the few nights after I'd been knocked out of competition, made some friends along the way, went to the closing ceremony, and then decided I want to do this again and I want to do it better.
Oh, absolutely beautiful. And the truth of the matter is, of course, you did it much better. Of course, in 2012, you won bronze at the London Olympic Games. Tell us a little bit about that experience and, of course, being on the podium.
Yeah, so, I mean, I then did put my head down and I followed my coach back to Europe because he then stopped coaching in South Africa, and I decided, well, Nando's taken me to the first step of a great international career, and it's something I really want to pursue. And so he ended up coaching some Hungarian guys for a short while and then moved over to coaching in Austria. So I spent a lot of time training either in Hungary, coming home. Some international paddlers would come to South Africa, we'd have camps there, and then I'd go back to either Hungary or Austria for many training camps. And then that last training camp before the London Olympics was tough. I decided I'd spend 2 months out of the country. I got 2 different South African girls to join me for about 3 weeks at a time, just to have like South African company with me, so I wasn't feeling 100% lonely by the time I got there to London, even though I did have training partners in Austria and Nando was there. It really does make a difference to have somebody that you can speak English to all the time, and just when you have a Sunday off, actually spend some time with somebody. You know, usually when we're at home, you have a braai with friends or spend some time with your family. And when you're overseas in Europe, yeah, Sundays do definitely become a bit lonely. And then I guess the approach to that Olympics was 100% focus, and I only flew in 4 days before. There was no opening ceremony like Beijing. There was no time zone difference, which was amazing. I'd already been in Europe for 2 months. So it really was like a racehorse. You arrive, you race, and had probably one of the best races of my life, and almost couldn't believe it, or maybe still don't. And yeah, eventually found myself standing on the 3rd step, getting myself an Olympic medal.
Absolutely beautiful story. Let's talk a little bit about 2016, the Rio de Janeiro Olympics. What were some of the lessons that you learned at this particular Olympics?
So going into the Rio Olympics, I then decided to change coaches, which was in a way good for a few things, but bad for a few others. So it became a lot more challenging. I also went into it then, I think, feeling a little bit more stressed, maybe with some more pressure from my previous results. And I think everything just challenged me along the way. Often the paddling courses are far away from the Olympic Village, but this time it just felt more stressful driving in a bus for an hour to the course. And I never ever felt like it was so smooth sailing, that everything, I suppose London wasn't really, but I'd been to the test event the previous year and I kind of was ready for it, more so than Rio. And I don't know, I think I definitely stressed out a lot more, and I never felt settled. And when it came to racing, I don't think I raced all that badly, but I think that little bit of added stress and some uncertain things definitely didn't allow me to perform probably at the potential that I could have.
Definitely.